Hey everyone, this is Jason McAvoy with Jason in Portraits, and today's quick tip tutorial is working with the blend if option in Photoshop. And I use this to kind of enhance the background or the blown out sky. This one's not completely blown out, but if you want to add a little bit more to it, that's when I would use the blend if. Or if you do have a completely blown out sky and you want to add some detail back to the background. So what I've got here is my image, not edited, straight out of camera. Haven't went, and I could probably pull some of these clouds back in by darkening the background. Then I'd have to go in, mask that off of my subject here, and kind of lighten her eyes and all that. But this is just on the blend if, so let's just get into that. So I've got my background image of Blair here, and I've got an image of the sky. Um, One thing to point out, this was a completely overcast day when I shot, so you can't really see where the light's coming from. In this image, the light is actually coming, it's a sunset. It's from camera left or to the subject's right. So when you're matching up a sky, you want to make sure that the light is coming from approximately the same location. So if I had an image that had a sky or a sun in it, and then I drop in a sky that has the sun in a completely different uh, place, it's probably not going to look right. So what you do is just bring your image in here. I've already done so, and I've drug it out, which you can see by the Command T function. See how that is. Just kind of drug it out a little bit. I want to move that over just a tiny bit. Okay, then what we do to get to the blend if is we're going to right click to the right of the layer, and on the bottom we want to bleed the sky into the background image. So we're going to work with the underlying image. Just click and drag this over a little bit, and I do this until I get a lot of detail back from my subject, then let go. What you're going to do now is hold the Alt key and then click and drag that a little bit further, and that's going to refine it. What I'm looking for here is my corners. So you can see in the upper left and right corner how it's going white or lighter. I don't want that. So I'm going to just drag it to where that is just gone. And then that is what I'm going to work with. So we'll hit OK there. One thing I'm going to do is hit the blending mode, drop that down to multiply. That's going to darken things down just a little bit. Create a layer mask here, and then you can freehand this if you choose. I use my gradient tool. Select gradient tool. You want to choose the option to go foreground to transparent, and then you want to make sure your foreground color is black. So you can either hit D to set it back to default, and then X to set your foreground to black, or you can go in here and manually pick black to be your foreground color. Either way, if on this one, since the horizon is fairly straight, if you hold Shift, you'll draw in a straight line, 90 degrees, 45, 180 to create angles. And that way it kind of bleeds this in. We're going to go over this a couple times. I do not want the haze around my bushes. So once I get that, I usually roll this back to anywhere from 40 to 60%. So let's just do 45. Okay, so we can see that the little edging is gone off those, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. You can kind of see when we zoom in, you get that. If we roll this down to about 45, that's mostly gone. Zoom out, and you're not even really seeing that. One thing I do notice is her face. Some of the sky is still there. Obviously, I didn't take my gradient up that high. If I did, that would go away. The horizon line, you can probably get away with it because typically, unless it's a really late sunset, the horizon's going to be softer than higher in the sky. For this one, I'm going to undo that and add a little bit more detail back to the lower part. So to get it off of her face, I would hit B for brush, make sure that I'm painting with black, and then zoom into her face. And then I would just, since I'm painting on the mask here, I'm not affecting anything except that layer mask, and black hides it. And if I want to, hit white, that'll paint it back in. No reason we'd want to do that, but just showing you. And what you'd want to do is you want to come down, make sure that all of her skin doesn't have the sky bleeding through it. Make sure her dress doesn't. One quick tip, Alt, and then click on the layer mask, and that'll show you what you've already done. So I can see I've missed some here. So I'm going to go paint her there. And I'm just quickly doing this. Obviously, I'd take more time if I was actually editing. But I'm always bouncing back and forth between. If you hold Control and Spacebar, you can then zoom in. I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in. And if you aren't aware, you can right-click anywhere and bring up your brush options. Adjust your hardness. You can also use Shift and your bracket keys to adjust it, which is usually what I do. So there's my mask. It's mostly done. Turn that off and on. So some clouds in the background, and then a little bit more. I think I'm going to turn that down to 45 or 40%. And that's basically it, guys. You can do this on blown out backgrounds. The alternative, if you do a lot of off-camera flash, you can expose for the sky and then provide enough light on your subject so that you're getting your exposure proper in camera, not having to do this in Photoshop every time. So that might be a tutorial that we cover later. If not, then there's tons of tutorials out there for off-camera flash. But hopefully you guys understand this and get it and can implement this into your editing style. It's not something I use all the time, but it's just a tool that I keep in my back pocket whenever I get on location. If I don't have my lights with me, which is seldom, or if I'm just in a hurry to get something done and I don't want to set everything up, I will go into some images knowing that I'm going to drop a new sky in afterwards. So thank you very much.